So here we are looking at the future of telco and how Telus might learn from some market research, competitive research, trends going on around the place. We split this into a few parts. In part one, we just thought we'd take a look at some of the areas from the Telus website that identify and suggest services beyond telco. We acknowledge that we did see on there something in the health space around Medisys on the go and in the home, and there was also elements of Telus Driver in the connected car, which we've left off this research, but those are definitely areas that start to move the needle in the public's perception of what Telus is all about. We thought we'd start by looking at some of those words on the website that are not the ones you traditionally associate with the telco, like the internet and the phone there. So we found out here security, cloud solutions, and enterprise. They're all about different words, different suggestions of where things might be heading and where Telus might be extending its reach. Looking back inside phone there, having looked a little bit at some of the offerings under the security, just getting a flavour here of how things are set there. So over here, of course, there's these highlights, these partnerships that are in place with Office 365 and Skype for Business, obviously a Microsoft company. The logos are prominent there. So this partnership construct is obviously a telling and modern way of looking at getting things to market in the digital world. It immediately got us thinking, well, where else could that be? Could you be potentially the telco partner in Canada of Apple Business, or indeed part of HP's new device as a service offering? All of this was getting us into thinking in the small and medium business area, particularly, how does Telus extend its reach and start to be in the front of people's minds, potentially as a partner that could offer many more services than getting them online when they sort of set up their new office. How do we set up in the office once we're up and running and we've got our telco in? I've just set up in a new building. I've got my small, medium business up and running in a new city, for instance. Is a telco, any telco, never mind Telus, the first port of call of some of the core things that I need to achieve? I've got a team in a few cities, a few countries, who knows? But Microsoft Teams is one area where it seems that their service offers me, with my connectivity, the way to collaborate, to chat, to share documents, and I can do it very quickly, and it's quite intuitive. So what can we learn from some of these brands and some of their offerings to build some sort of partnership or credible offering from Telus, which offers many of the same things in a slightly different package? So there's that consideration. And then we kind of moved on a little bit to Google, of course. They have the Hangout, which competes directly, of course, with Teams. But they've been around a long time. Google, obviously, they're a massive global brand. But within the drop down there, you see this suite of brands that sometimes you forget are Google, YouTube, even Gmail, I suppose, up to a point. These useful brands are just there at your fingertips. They've got their own identities. They're offering immediate value and usage from the millions of connections and businesses that Google work with. But they're obviously, it's a kind of brand play of that collection of services under that umbrella, worth knowing and thinking about. But then again, Slack came up. I mean, big news of the last few years. I know it took them a while to get going, but they've particularly sorted their niche in that collaboration between different groups of people. It's online, it's chat, it's quick, it's fast, it's easy to find a narrative and not have to dig through email. So they managed to build a business, seems to be doing pretty well, just off finding their particular area that fitted neatly with the way they looked at the world. I mean, that got us looking a little bit further in how else do you extend your reach into the workplace of today, particularly in that small and medium business place? Who else is trying to encroach in that space and particularly shift their own brand perception, and what can we learn from them? So we had a look at IBM. They are, moving towards the phrases. They're not exactly warm and friendly, and in fact, maybe slightly angular and cold, but they're leaning towards describing what you in your new business need. Digital workplace as a service from IBM might be something worth considering. Devices to procure and deploy, that might be something I'm trying to do. It gets a little bit more tricky when what is a managed mobility service. I might click in to find out. But of course, as soon as I get device health with Watson, they do like to talk about themselves a lot, maybe more than me. But I think it's useful that these services are put out as a particular one or two might appeal to me. Dig in, find out, talk to an expert. It's all that. They are starting to offer me the services that I'm looking for, obviously in their own language. I think that warms up a little bit where we start to look at someone like CDW. They're a giant tech product and services provider for businesses and government. They've gone about it even more kind of crisply and obviously Cloud, cybersecurity, warranty services, they leap out as being pretty descriptive of something that I may not need as I look through this list. It might be slightly more opaque. What is a managed service, for instance, and what might I find out? But they're kind of speaking to my language about me getting this business up and running. So I'm minded to try and find out more about how it's relevant to me before then connecting the dots and seeing if there's someone I might consider to do it. And lastly, in this little segment, we had a look at Xerox, which I think are doing it even more warmly. The third of the three, beyond CDW and IBM. Using language on here like hitting your sustainability goals and keeping your endpoint secure, they are taking a leap from kind of taking a note from consumer language. They're putting it in me and my context, my problem, my situation. They're suggesting they've thought about things in my context and have offerings and advice and recommendations beyond merely the sale of a thing. Obviously, they're trying to move themselves away from being a lump of hardware in the corner of your office, and they're doing their best to show that they've thought this through. They've obviously put their billions of their company, brand and thought into how they can extend their reach and secure their future in your office, hitting their goals, being important to you. Looking over here, I just realized, recognized that 16 questions to consider. That one doesn't even sound necessarily like a service, but that is the insight and money they've spent as a big brand to try and help me in my scenario. So I think that this is warming me up as a small, medium business buyer. We're trying to think of ways that you could learn at TELUS of other people's methods of extending their brand messaging into services that you could potentially extend and offer them that are credible and line up behind your brand promise. So we'll leave this one here.